In the dead of night, when every porch light in Cedar Creek Estates had dimmed and the street lay silent under a blanket of uneasy calm, I discovered that privilege was the cruelest weapon. It was 8:01 p.m. when my phone buzzed with the HOA's latest diktat. No resident shall set foot outside their home after 8 o'clock, punishable by fines, suspension of amenities, and if Karen Latham had her way, public humiliation. I felt a spark of disbelief ignite into fury. How dare she, the overweight tyrant in a too-tight floral blouse, decree that our freedom of movement ended at dusk? My heart thundered as I reviewed her tyrannical letter in the glow of my kitchen light, wondering if I should laugh or cry. Instead, I chose to act. I watched from my living room window as her rotund silhouette stalked the common green, muttering threats to anyone foolish enough to defy her curfew. My neighbor Mrs. Alvarez cowered behind her curtains, and the chilling realization hit me that Karen's rule wasn't about safety, it was about control. That first moment shattered my complacency and set a fire beneath my ribs that no HOA notice could ever extinguish. My response took shape while I scrolled through old news articles about our quaint town's founding ideals, where midnight gatherings and open-air celebrations once bound neighbors in camaraderie rather than fear. I remembered the old sheriff's tales of impromptu block parties and how those spontaneous flames of community spirit forged lifelong bonds. If Karen thought she could snuff out our joy with a bureaucratic edict, she hadn't reckoned on the undeniable force of truth and solidarity. Under the pale moonlight, I drafted an invitation. Midnight barbecue on the green, open to all. No curfew can stop us. I sent it to friends and posted a discreet flyer in the local coffee shop, careful to avoid Karen's prying eyes. I reached out to an unexpected ally, Police Chief Marcus Reynolds, a man of integrity and old-school respect for civil liberties. When I asked him to join us, he surprised me by nodding solemnly. He agreed not as an enforcer of rules, but as a guardian of the people's rights. Word spread in hushed excitement and defiant whispers, and soon a coalition of neighbors, tired parents, restless teens, and elderly veterans answered the call. That coalition was my hidden twist, the once silent faces of Cedar Creek Estates stepping forward to reclaim their home from Karen's iron grip. On the night of the barbecue, the green lay empty under the ivory moon, save for the soft hiss of propane burners and the reassuring presence of Chief Reynolds in his uniform, his flashlight turned off in solidarity. Chairs circled the barbecue pit, laden with plates of sizzling burgers, corn on the cob, and smoky ribs. As neighbors filed in, sharing smiles of relief, I saw Mrs. Patel nervously tuck her shawl tighter and old Mr. Dixon shuffle forward with fresh buns he'd baked for the occasion. I stood before the small crowd, heart pounding, and gave a short speech about community and the right to breathe free air after dark. Laughter rippled through the group, and someone struck up a guitar from the back of a truck. For a moment, it felt like we were all transported back to a time before HOA tyranny, a flash of pure joy against the night sky. Then Karen arrived, waddling into the glow of folding lights, her floral blouse stained and her face reddened with fury. She brandished a clipboard and a calculator as though they were swords, demanding we disperse immediately or face the full weight of her bylaws. But before she could summon her petulant threats, Chief Reynolds stepped forward, unclipped his badge and held it high. His steady voice cut through her shrill protests as he read aloud the town charter. No homeowner association may impose curfews on private citizens nor punish peaceful assemblies. His words echoed across the green, silencing her tirade. I watched in quiet triumph as Karen's shoulders slumped, her authority evaporating in the face of lawful truth and communal courage. The unexpected face-off manager of the law defending the people against the HOA's overreach was the dramatic confrontation that finally broke her. Karen's collapse was swift and merciless. Her once proud scowl fractured into a grimace of disbelief as neighbors stepped forward to confront her hypocrisy. One by one, they recited examples of her petty cruelties. The time she fined Mrs. Chun for hanging laundry too early, the time she shut off the pool heater to punish the children, the time she ordered streetlights hooded because she couldn't sleep. The evidence piled upon her, each statement a hammer blow to her facade. When the final neighbor spoke of Karen's attempt to bar an elderly veteran from delivering his nightly paper route, her bravado shattered like glass. She retreated backward, clutching her clipboard against her chest, the wood rattling like the last brittle leaf of autumn. In that instant, Karen knew her reign of microterror had ended. There was no higher authority to call on, no more bylaws to wield as weapons, just the cold truth of her neighbor's contempt. As dawn threatened the horizon with pale pink fingers, we sat together around the dying embers, the burnt orange glow fading into morning. Laughter mingled with the aroma of coffee brewing in chipped enamel pots. The local newspaper's photographer, tipped off discreetly by an undercover friend, snapped pictures of our defiance and solidarity. Soon, the story would appear under the headline "Midnight Barbecue Shuts Down, HOA Curfew," a testament to what happens when a community chooses justice over fear. We passed around a weathered lantern and raised our cups in a toast to freedom, unity, and the power of speaking truth to entitlement. Each face reflected hope rekindled, a promise that no small-minded decree would ever again dim our shared spirit. In the aftermath, fines were rescinded, bylaws rewritten, and Karen Latham was voted out of her position in a landslide recall. The police chief received commendations for upholding constitutional rights, and neighbors formed a new community council to ensure transparency and fairness. Above all, we learned that no hoopla of rules can suppress the human need for connection and celebration. The midnight barbecue became an annual tradition, a living reminder that courage in the darkness can ignite the brightest dawn. What do you think? Is this justice served or an overreaction? Share your thoughts on right and wrong below. HOA Karen's downfall echoed through Cedar Creek Estates long after that first triumphant dawn, rippling into unexpected corners of our once stifled neighborhood life. In the weeks that followed, whispers of her defeat became legend. Children who once cowered indoors now played tag under the streetlights until late. Neighbors who barely exchanged polite nods formed small dinner clubs, and impromptu sing-alongs drifted through the cul-de-sac on warm summer evenings. Under the soft glow of newly installed lanterns, Mrs. Alvarez set out fresh lemonade every Tuesday. Mr. Dixon brought his homegrown tomatoes on Saturdays, and the Patel family taught salsa lessons on the green, turning what had been Karen's cage of restrictions into a vibrant tapestry of community connection. Even the community garden, once dust-barren under Karen's strict neatness code, burst into riotous color as neighbors planted heirloom seeds, sharing seedlings and stories of family traditions. The garden became our living monument to the power of collective will, a place where every petal and vine whispered freedom in the gentle summer breeze. Meanwhile, Karen retreated from public life, her floral blouse replaced by drab neutrals as she moved out of her grand HOA-paid mansion into a modest rental at the edge of town. Rumor had it she tried to rally support for a comeback election, only to be met with shuttered doors and resolute resistance. When she appeared at the community center one afternoon clutching a petition, the doors stayed locked and the windows drawn, leaving her shouting at empty chairs. Though I felt a twinge of pity, no one deserved such loneliness. I clung to the knowledge that her isolation was a consequence of her own cruelty. It was poetic justice that the woman who banned joy should find herself exiled from celebration. In the months that followed, the local newspaper ran a series of human interest stories about the new traditions sparked by our midnight barbecue. One feature chronicled how Mrs. Chen's freshly reopened pool became a free weekend hangout for families. Another celebrated Mr. Dixon's Tomato Festival. Yet another praised the fledgling night market where neighbors sold homemade crafts under strings of lights. Each article brimmed with photographs of laughter-filled faces, lively tables, and the community's shared sense of triumph over petty tyranny. Even tourists began to trickle in on weekends, drawn by stories of a once-oppressed neighborhood that had risen in defiance of an overbearing HOA queen. The economic boost revitalized our little strip of shops. The owner of the coffee shop painted a mural of the barbecue scene on his wall, immortalizing the moment when unity broke the bonds of control. Chief Reynolds, hailed as the people's protector, received a commendation at the county hall, but he deflected the praise, insisting that it had been the neighbors' courage that turned the tide. He continued to patrol our streets with a quiet vigilance and a friendly wave, ensuring that no successor to Karen's overreach would ever again threaten our liberties. Sometimes I would spot him leaning on his cruiser, chatting with Mr. Dixon over fresh tomatoes, or aiding Mrs. Alvarez in setting up her weekly lemonade stand. His presence became a reassuring symbol, The law serves the people, not the other way around. One surprisingly poignant twist emerged when Karen's once trusted sidekick, the HOA Vice President, a slender man named Mitchell, approached me on my porch one crisp morning, clutching a small cardboard box. Inside lay a single succulent plant wrapped in tissue paper, alongside an unsigned note. For the spirit of community you restored. I recognized the handwriting as Mitchell's. He had been Karen's enforcer, dutifully patrolling the green for rule breakers. Now, standing before me with shame burning in his eyes, he offered the humble gift as penance for the fear he had helped sow. I accepted it with a nod, planting the succulent at the community garden's edge. Soon it sprouted bright green leaves, a quiet testament to forgiveness and the possibility of redemption, even for those who once wielded power unjustly. Summer waned into autumn, and the annual barbecue tradition blossomed into a full-blown festival. The event now spanned 3 nights, featuring neighborhood-run food stalls, live music from local bands, a petting zoo organized by the Parkers, and a freedom walk led by the veterans who had once feared Karen's curfew. The final night's highlight was always a lantern release. Dozens of paper lanterns inscribed with neighbors' hopes and apologies soared skyward in a breathtaking display, each one a flicker of collective aspiration. As the lanterns drifted toward the stars, I remembered how one defiant spark beneath the moon had reignited our community, and how that spark had grown into a guiding flame. Even the children, who had once crept home before dusk, took center stage in this new era of openness. They staged a puppet show reenacting Karen's downfall, complete with cardboard costumes and improvised dialogue, met with uproarious laughter from families sprawled on quilts across the grass. I caught sight of Mrs. Patel wiping tears of mirth from her eyes as the puppet Karen brandished a tiny clipboard and then tripped over her own rules. It was healing to see our shared history transformed into playful theater, a sign that the worst of our tensions had become fuel for communal joy. In quieter moments, I reflected on the fragile line between order and oppression. Neighborhoods everywhere rely on rules to maintain harmony, but unchecked authority, even over seemingly trivial matters, can suffocate the spirit and erode trust. Our midnight barbecue had reminded us that power must remain accountable, and that the true purpose of any community is to nurture its members, not to dictate every breath they take. I made it a point to speak about this at local council meetings, advocating for a charter amendment that enshrined residents' rights to peaceful assembly and regular review of HOA policies. The measure passed unanimously, cementing our newfound ethos of transparency and mutual respect. By the first frost, Cedar Creek Estates looked almost unrecognizable from the somber streets Karen once patrolled. Holiday lights twinkled in December atop gingerbread-like houses, and carolers paraded down the green under hanging wreaths. For the first time that season, I felt no unease at gathering outdoors after dark instead. I relished the crisp air and the glow of lanterns, knowing I shared these moments with people who refused to be ruled by fear. Our community had learned that standing together against petty tyranny did more than rescue our freedoms. It bound us in ways that no HOA bylaw ever could. In the end, Karen Latham's story became a cautionary tale, whispered whenever someone threatened to overstep their bounds. Parents told their children, "Remember Karen's curfew? Don't let anyone cage your heart." Friends joked about holding midnight barbecues in her honor. And though Karen herself lingered in her lonely rental, haunted by memories of the laughter she once banned, Cedar Creek Estates thrived in the light of shared defiance. We discovered that the greatest rule of all is this: a community's strength lies not in its bylaws, but in the bonds of trust and the courage to protect one another's right to live fully, freely, and with joyful abandon.